started.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I think we should wait a couple more minutes just to see if our chair, Vicki Gordon, will be logging on. Let's say we give her another 2 minutes. And if she doesn't log on, I will run the meeting. It looks like we have a quorum. We have 4 commissioners here, which is great. So let's pause for about 2 more minutes. Thanks.
I apologize for my tardiness, everyone. Good evening. And welcome to the West Contra Costa Unified School District's Independent Redistricting Commission for our Tuesday, January 11th meeting. It is now 6:37, so I will call the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call vote? Ms. Forrest?
I'll be doing the roll call today.
Oh, thank you.
Commissioner Butler, Commissioner Diaz-Noriega,
Present.
Commissioner Tualu,
Present.
Commissioner Hilliard,
Present.
Commissioner Chair Gordon,
Present.
Commissioner Lazaretti.
Present.
Thank you. And moving on to our next item is our, let's see, my agenda just disappeared on me. I'm sorry.
I think it's approval of the minutes.
Approval of our minutes. Thank you, Vice Chair. For our January 11th, for our January 4th meeting, are there any amendments? Seeing none,
So
I'll need a,
actually, the agenda, I think, actually had the approval of the agenda as the next item prior to approval of the minutes, just to note.
thank you. So our next agenda item is item 3, approval of agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening? If not, I would entertain a motion in a second.
Move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Lazaretti and a second from Commissioner Hilliard. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Butler, Commissioner Diaz-Noriega,
Aye.
Commissioner Tualu,
Aye.
Commissioner Hilliard,
Aye.
Commissioner Chair Gordon,
Aye.
Commissioner Lazaretti.
Aye.
The approval was unanimous. So now we'll move on for approval of our January 4th, 2022 minutes. Are there any amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion again in a second.
I move that we approve the minutes.
I second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Lazzaretti and a second from Commissioner Hilliard. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Butler, Commissioner Diaz-Noriega,
Aye.
Commissioner Tuwalu,
Aye.
Commissioner Hilliard,
Aye.
Commissioner Chair Gordon,
Aye.
Commissioner Lazzaretti,
Aye.
And that gets approved unanimously with the board, with the commissioners that are present. Moving on to item 5, our public comment. This is the time when we allow the public to speak on items not already on our agenda. We allow 3 minutes, and we do ask that you keep it to our jurisdiction. Are there any comments this evening?
we have one comment. Tom, please unmute yourself.
Good evening, Chair Gordon, members of the commission, and commission staff person Pitts. I would just like to express my extreme gratitude for the work that you have done. I don't think it was quite as bloody as what the year or so it took for us on the board at the time to get this actually happening, but you have done an incredible job implementing at least what my vision was, which was an independent citizens redistricting commission. And I especially have to commend Chair Gordon and Mr. Hilliard, because you stepped up into leadership roles early on, even when it was clear the district was already trying to stand in your way. And of course, you had elected officials and non-elected officials trying to lobby you in very unfortunate ways and force your hand. I am so thankful for the work you did. And Mr. Pitts, you know, there was a lot of people trying to get commissions, trying to get staff, and I'll have to say the same thing for our demographer. I'm so thankful that you guys stepped up to do this work. You did what I hoped it would be, which is to do the best thing for kids, not for politicians. And all I say is thankful. I'm hoping we're about at the end of the road here. And I think we've done an amazing thing. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, Mr. Panos. I appreciate those kind words. And again, if we could not have done that without the entire support of the commission. So I want to again tip my hat to every one of the commissioners that have spent a lot of time volunteering away from work and families. They did a job well done. So thank you. We do have another public comment. Do you see that?
Latifa, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Ms. Beltran. Latifa, have you unmuted yourself? Latifa, we are unable to hear you. Is there anything that we can do to aid? We are having technical difficulties, and I'm not sure of the correct procedure to adapt at this time. Any suggestions, Mr. Pitts?
I think the participant will need to ensure that the computer is set up to allow use of the microphone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yes.
Okay, great. So my name is Latifa Abdullah, and I saw, I just happened upon a heading on the internet, and then I also saw a sign driving down McDonald about redistricting. So I'm joining this evening to get a better understanding. I saw a little bit online, and I wanted to get some more information because it seems as though that the community can still vote on members, but then I wasn't real clear on the retired judge appointing people. So I wanted to get an understanding on what those, on what that level was about, and why there is someone that's not elected appointing. I forgot what they were called. They were like area. I think there were 4 different areas. Can you give me the name of I think there are 4 different areas, but the people that were going to be appointed were going to be appointed by a retired judge. So just want to get a better understanding on what's going on. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Latifa. We can clarify. And Mr. Pitts, did you want to speak to the process that was used to find commissioners?
Certainly. So just to be clear, that the commissioners here are not members of the West Contra Costa Unified School District Board of Trustees. The commissioners are part of this commission, which is charged with drawing new redistricting lines governing future elections for the Board of Trustees. So these are the individuals here, just to be clear. Their job is to draw the new lines for future elections, not to serve on the actual Board of Trustees. They'll draw a map that will be used for subsequent elections to the Board of Trustees, which actually one of the conditions of serving on the commission is that they are not going to be running for those positions in the future. And the way that we came here is that until 2020, prior to 2020, the district did not have area-based elections to the Board of Trustees. Instead, all of the elections were at large. So all residents of the West Contra Costa Unified School District voted for all of the members of the Board of Trustees. And the board was sued under the California Voting Rights Act. Excuse me, I'll start my video. The board was sued under the California Voting Rights Act, alleging that system of at-large elections improperly denied the right to vote to minority communities, particularly Black and Latino communities in West Contra Costa Unified School District, by creating a system that continually allowed the majority to elect candidates of their choosing and to prevent minority groups from electing candidates of their choosing. As a settlement of that lawsuit, the district agreed to a process that would convert the system of elections from a at-large system to a trustee area-based system. And preliminarily, for purposes of the 2020 election, agreed to a specific map for use in that election that created 5 trustee areas from which 5 different trustees would be elected, and the elections would only involve the individuals in those in that trustee area. The settlement also provided that the future map would be drawn by this independent redistricting commission, and that is a commission that is formed under a provision of California law, providing for such a commission to exist to do the redistricting for the purpose of protecting that process from the political inputs that can otherwise obviously impact redistricting processes. And as part of the settlement, and again, to protect the integrity of the commission and its independence from the political processes that can shape these matters, the settlement agreement between the district and the plaintiffs in that lawsuit provided that the members of the commission would be selected from amongst a pool of applicants who had submitted applications, by Judge Thelton Henderson, who is a senior United States District Judge and an extremely well-respected jurist and member of the community. And so the commissioners here applied to Judge Henderson and were selected by him based on, you know, his evaluation of their qualifications and their integrity and independence and ability to serve on the commission. And just to be clear, that part of the reason this is being done now, as opposed to before the 2020 election, was because of the 2020 census. There was a knowledge at the time the settlement was agreed that these districts would all have to be redrawn after that census took place to account for any population changes that occurred. And so pursuant to that settlement, the commission is here, and the commissioners have spent a great deal of time putting together a new proposed map. This is one of the opportunities that the public, including Ms. Alkali, have to comment on the preliminary plan that the district, that the commission has adopted, which is posted on the commission's website, and there's a link in the chat. There will be another opportunity next week. The following week will be the meeting at which the district will, or the commission will adopt its recommended plan. And there will then be some additional public outreach opportunities and comment opportunities before the commission adopts what will be its final trustee area map for upcoming trustee area elections.
Thank you, Mr. Pitts. And as you can see from Commissioner Hilliard, one of the areas we had a resignation, we actually had 2 resignations. And so we were looking for someone to apply for area 2. We never did get any applicants. So that is why that remains open. So I hope, Latifa, that has clarified the issues for you. And are there any other public comments this evening?
No more comments.
Seeing none, then we will move on to item 6. Item 6 is discussion and possible action items. We allow 3 minutes under each item for public comment. Item 6A is discussion and solicitation of public input regarding our preliminary plan. And our preliminary plan, we have Dr. Collingwood here this evening who can talk more to that, as well as as Mr. Pitts. So we will open that up first to any commissioner input. If we have any commissioner input this evening, now is the time to raise your hand. Seeing no hands from our commissioners, we will open it up for public comment.
No hands for public comment.
Seeing that we have no hands for public comment, we will move on to our next item. Our next item is okay, why do I keep losing my agenda? Our next agenda item is
It shows as discussion of additional public outreach measures.
thank you. So this time, last week, we did talk about the public outreach that we'd done over the months. We've done a thorough job of reaching out to each area in the community, all 5 areas. We had both Zoom meetings and open to the public at places. And so at this time, though, we were looking for more input, and we put this back on to see if we couldn't get more public outreach for our final meetings. And Deanna, did you want to discuss anything else?
No, I don't have any other updates. I know if folks that are currently on right now want to see the 2-pager just to have access to all the links, that might be easier. I know sometimes when we drop links on the chat, if it's PDF, it doesn't download directly, but yeah, I don't have any other additions.
Are there any comments from commissioners this evening? Mr. Pitts?
If I could just add that I know that we have been charged last week with working on the public outreach, and I haven't had an opportunity, unfortunately, yet to speak with Ms. Commissioner Diaz-Noriega about it, but I did review the work that she did and thought it was fantastic. So I think that whenever, I think we can move forward with determining how we want to distribute the really helpful document that she's put in the chat and has prepared.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on public outreach?
We have one comment on public.
And it also appears that Commissioner Lazzaretti may have a comment.
All right, we'll bring it back after we hear from public comment.
Genoveva Calloway, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, and thank you for all your work that you guys have done. I agree with the first speaker in terms of other work that you've done. I got to see the maps, and it had a lot of abbreviations, which then I was fortunate to be able to communicate, to ask Lauren Collingwood the questions that I had. I'm a community person, so it was like, and I also, I understand it's really hard right now to find for the community to get involved in your community forums and your meetings. And we don't have to go over how it got done. I understand you try your best. So I'm just letting you know for your last meeting and then on to the board, I never saw anything about it. So that's okay. I'm just saying we just have to, the thing that works for me, I think, and for a lot of people is we're learning, because I'm in another project where we're trying to reach the community related to COVID, is that we're social media and also WhatsApp and also something really simple for people to look at the maps. And then I did ask Mr. Collingwood if there was a document that had all the 5 districts kind of like next to each other, not the maps, because that's too much, obviously, but so that we could quickly just compare the districts and, if something might come up in our head in terms of a question or something for next meeting, in case that person is interested. But I think if we put out these maps, again, they need to be more self-explanatory so people can understand them, what the legends are and what the abbreviations are. And also a comparison of the 5 districts. When I first was on the committee, I think that was done by the staff then. So that was nice to see all in one, the 5 districts, all the different data that's on the right of the maps. Anyway, that's my feedback, because I think, then we can put it out there to our contacts that we know, especially community advocates that might want to respond, just like when I saw this, then it gave me some ideas and so it urged me to join the meeting, come back to the meetings. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Genoveva. Genoveva was a commissioner at one time, so she's been another person to thank for her valuable input and time. We really do appreciate it, as well as Mr. Panas. He has been here giving his valuable input. So we have one meeting left, January 18th, and we can do our best on social media. I'll be sure to put that out on all of mine and see if we can't get more participation and make sure everybody is aware. We do have another question. Thank you, Mr. Pitts, in the chat for the requirements for the commissioner. That has been placed in chat. And then I'm going to bring it back now, unless we have further public input. I'm going to bring it back now so that Commissioner Lazzaretti can comment. Is there any other public comment, Ms. Beltran?
No more public comment.
Mr. Lazzaretti?
Thank you, Commissioner Gordon. I was just going to suggest, as far as the 2-page document that Commissioner Diaz-Noriega put together, that we try to just find some way to incorporate that into our redistricting commission website as a easily downloadable document between now and the next meeting. Also, perhaps we can work with the communications team at the school district to try to encourage them to send this out, or encourage administrators and principals to send this information out in their email communication with parents and families. Just let folks know we're nearing the end of the process, and this is the opportunity for the community to offer any final input and feedback on these preliminary maps. For those who haven't, I'll just point out that we have limited resources. We've tried our best to try to engage the community and ask the school district to engage the community through this process. Obviously, we didn't have a lot of community input at the public hearings we held. We had 5 public hearings that were held at different locations throughout the school district. That's not surprising necessarily, but a lot of folks have a lot of things going on, and redistricting is not top of mind for a lot of people. But I just want to assure the folks out there that we tried our best to get the word out about our work, and we had a very robust, thorough discussion on these maps when we approved them last month. We talked at depth through the various pros and cons of the various maps and the various demographic issues and voting rights issues involved. So I just want to assure folks that we try to do our due diligence, and Dr. Collingwood did an excellent job walking us through this entire process and how he came up with these proposals and the issues we needed to weigh in deciding what map would best serve the voters of the school district. So, but I think it would be great if we could put something together, put something out there like Commissioner Diaz-Noriega put together. That's a little more user-friendly, utilitarian for a lay audience to be able to kind of grasp what this is all about and what these maps would mean. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lazzaretti. And I wholeheartedly agree. This is our last hurrah almost on the 18th to really make sure that we have done as much as possibly we can. We did have COVID, and I think COVID probably had a significant impact on the number of people who could participate and their involvement. But I think many school districts are still dealing with that and trying to figure out how we communicate through this time, even as the teachers that my friends that are teaching classes, they're very frustrated. The connectivity the connections that they make in person and with students and parents, they're just not getting to that level of communication that they're used to. So this has been a struggle for us all, and we have done our very best. And again, I am very, very proud of my commissioners and a job well done. And so do we have any more commissioners or public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Okay, we do have one last question about extending the timeline. We don't have the luxury to extend our timeline. We are guided by the parameters in the stipulated agreement. And one of the things that we need to do is have this done by a certain timeline, and the timeline then has to go to the school board, the West Contra Costa Unified School District School Board, in a timely manner in order for us to have this finished. So at this point in time, we only have the one last meeting on January 18th. We're going to do our very best to get that information out. so that people can have their last say. We're going to get as much information, user-friendly version on the webpage, and we'll try to get that, disseminate that information to as many people as we can at this time. But since we no longer have any public comment on this item, and we don't have any commissioner pub comment on this item, we're going to move on to item 7, our commissioner reports, updates, and future agenda items. Commissioners, do we have any reports, updates, or future agenda items? Raise your hand if you'd like to speak on this. Commissioner Hilliard.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Gordon. My one question would be for the next meeting, next Tuesday, if it will be possible for Dr. Collinwood to prepare any sort of overlay where we could see the current map that we used in the 2020 elections with the proposed map, preliminary map that we're going to be voting on and submitting to the board. Just because it might be helpful for the members of the public, and even for the commission website, if something like that could be up there. I can relate to Miss Latifah's comments about, Miss Callaway's comments about the word not getting out enough, and there just being natural limitations with interactive maps, social media, cell phone screen windows, and things like that. So, as Commissioner Lazzaretti said, we did do the best we can. We have tried to get our information out to the public, make the information accessible. And maybe this would be one additional thing that could help people understand what we've done and what we're proposing, so that they can see their current maps and see the proposed map. Thanks.
Dr. Collingwood, did you want to respond?
Yeah, I can. I think the most useful way to look at that would be to put the old map on the interactive map, because when you look at the kind of PDF version, it's just hard to, pull them apart. There's just a lot of different lines and things. So I think that would be the way to go on that one. On Viva's point, I've been working on putting together a demographic, like a Excel file that also lists out what the different variables mean, like what we would call a data layout sheet as well, definitions and things like that. So I'm working on that actually right now, because we've been in email communication. And then I did make the slight change in District 3 and 4 to Helms Middle School area. So that has been updated. It slightly changes the demographic, not the demographic, the deviation, but it's not too much. And then getting the Native American percentages on the maps a little harder, just for a variety of data reasons that I don't want to bore anyone with, but I'm working on putting that number into the produce Excel file that I'm working on right now. So obviously the Native American numbers, or maybe not obviously, but they're pretty small. But that's not the point, of course, just to see them. So I can't estimate their vote or registration, but I can estimate their citizen voting age population and total population. So I can include that. So that's what I'm actually been working on that most of the day, and should have that posted.
Thank you. Thank you. I did want to also comment that there was a comment in the chat that asked about the possibility of having it interactive to the point of where you can input an address to see what area you fall in. Is that a possibility? Do you need a whole?
Yeah, I don't think that I have in my toolkit or the software I work with doesn't allow that. That would probably need to be, there's probably some sort of tech firm that, or some software available that we could potentially do that. But the way that the current setup I have, that's beyond the pale in this particular case.
We did have that ability in the community college. We've had wards since the inception in 1948. They've had wards, and so as time went on, you can input your address and see which ward that you have, what boundaries you're in. Commissioner Lazzaretti, did you have a comment?
Yes, question or two and a comment. Mr. Pitts, can you remind us when the deadline is for us under the agreement to approve the final maps?
So, I mean, the operative deadline that we're most concerned about is March 1st, which is the statutory deadline for completing the process before it can be, before anyone could attempt to shift the process to the County Board of Education. So we're
okay.
Yeah, so that is the deadline that the schedule we've been operating on is keyed to satisfying.
And is that when the school board is supposed to approve the map as well?
The current schedule provides a time between January 25th and the end and the February meeting at which the final plan will be adopted for the school board to hold a hearing on the recommended plan. Some point between January 25th and February, I think 14th, although I apologize, I don't have it.
So the current plan is for us to have our final meeting and do the final approval next Tuesday?
No, so the next Tuesday would be another public outreach meeting. The 25th would be the meeting at which the commission will adopt its recommended plan.
Okay.
There will then be a hearing. There's an opportunity for the Board of Education to hold a hearing on the recommended plan at some point in the following 3 weeks. And then the plan that we had formulated would be for the commission to meet on February 15th to adopt a final districting plan after the Board of Education has conducted a public hearing about the plan.
I see. Okay, so that was my recollection. We're scheduled to meet next Tuesday for another public outreach session, and then the following the 25th will be when we actually vote on presenting this to the school board. Okay.
That's right. And again, I mean, I think that there's nothing that would, there is a subsequent meeting to conduct a final districting plan, so that there's certainly, there could be additional modifications to the plan made at that time. But this would be the plan that the commission would present to the school board as its recommended plan for them to hold a public hearing.
I see. So looking ahead to the 25th, could we plan as part of our agenda that night to have Dr. Collingwood do kind of more of a formal presentation as he did during the public outreach meetings, so that folks who may be joining at that point can understand thoroughly what these maps would mean and how they would affect voting in the district. I was wondering if perhaps we can have a more formal PowerPoint presentation for the meeting of the 25th, if that makes sense to the other commissioners.
Yes, it makes sense. And I think the process that we went through, I think the process for, as we've found out tonight for Latifa to, walk someone through is very helpful for somebody who may be just finding out about us for the first time. It's very helpful. So is that possible, Dr. Collingwood?
Yeah, of course. I mean, if people are coming here particularly for, some good demographic and redistricting kind of new knowledge, I guess, as it were, that could really be useful kind of at the later stages, just to bring it back, because we've all been in this so long now that we use terms and have a certain unfortunate jargon that we VAP, CVAP, all this kind of stuff, where
Right.
a lot of people aren't familiar with that. So we can kind of break that down a little bit more. Be happy to do that.
Yes, and then the depth that we've gone into with the maps, we're taking for granted some of the
Yeah.
things that people are very confused about. So I agree.
One other comment I had, as well as a question, Mr. Pitts, I'm not sure when the next school board meeting is, but would someone from the commission under this process be allowed during public comment at the school board meeting to inform the public of our upcoming meetings, so that we could, as part of the public outreach efforts, to try to do our due diligence to try to get the word out as much as possible? Would that be something that would be allowed?
I mean, I think that I'm not sure that it's prohibited, if it's in a public context. The main prohibition on communications is ex parte communications between the board of trustees and the commissioners. So I think we should think about whether that's the best way to convey the information, or if there's another point of information. But I can look into the timing of those meetings, and I think Commissioner Diaz-Noriega has provided us with information,
Right.
and reach out about the most appropriate way to take advantage of participation in those meetings as a method of conducting outreach for our next meeting. I think that's
Do any other commissioners have thoughts on whether that would, if it's considered appropriate, whether that would be a good idea or not?
We talked about this in the beginning, I don't know if you remember, and we came to the conclusion that while you come to a public comment and just to make a comment, there could be engagement. And we decided, since it was the beginning and we really wanted to make sure that the process wasn't tainted. And so we really did lean to the very safe side of not going to feeling that it was not a good idea to go to the school board. At this point in time, with all of our work done, the commission may feel differently about that. There may be a different way to go. I don't know how, what is the pleasure of commissioners? And again, we do have to think about the stipulated agreement, and we do have to think about, even if we're not doing anything wrong, we have to think about the appearance of doing wrong. Who would go, those kinds of things are the types of things. And it's always best to listen to our legal advisor when dealing with these kinds of issues. So I'll bring it, I'm going to just actually, Mr. Pitts, I'm going to just give it back to you for one final, your thoughts on the idea being a good one, or something to stay away from the 19th, January 19th.
I mean, I think I do like the idea of using that meeting as an opportunity to convey the significance of what will be done at the January 25th meeting of the commission. It sounds like, since the next meeting is next January 19th, I think we couldn't use it to publicize next Tuesday's meeting, but we could use it to publicize what's happening on January 25th. I think you're right that thinking about how to maximize the continuing, evidence of impartiality and limit the opportunities for sort of engagement on the topic is important. And so whether that involves, if it is possible to have an item, provided by someone participating in the board meeting, a note made at the meeting to those who are participating, That might, a formal communication that's prepared by the commission or me as counsel, asking that it be read during the meeting. That could be one method of communicating that information without sort of creating a space for it to become a public comment item that could then be responded to. If the idea, and I think the idea is that there should be a specific meeting, which is after the adoption of the recommended plan, where there will be an opportunity for comment. And that until that time, we should continue to not invite interaction on this topic. That may perhaps the appropriate thing to do is for me to do some outreach about what is possible in that realm, and if that is the case, to draft something that could be used in that respect.
And right at the meeting, I think that is the best course forward. How do my fellow commissioners feel about that? Commissioner Diaz-Noriega,
Yeah, I agree.
you agree? Commissioner Tualu?
I was busy checking the map because to my recollection, last time our meeting, Dr. Collingwood was not present, but it was mentioned that Dr. Collingwood will accommodate the concern of Miss Harrison. But I checked the map and I still see that Abela Circle is part of District 4 and Helms Middle School is part of District 3. So I just want to bring that matter. But if other commissioner voted to stay like that, then what can I do? I'm just the one vote out of 6 or 5.
Can I respond to that?
Absolutely.
So what I just did was Helms Middle School is in District 3, and what I did was I shifted the boundary that was on Road 20, and it could be because you're looking at maybe an interactive plot as opposed to the PDF, which is my bad, but technical term, but boundary
Yeah. Yeah,
up
I see the interactive.
I shifted the boundary up to Porter there, and so we're now in the process of just updating all the other maps, and it will just take a little bit longer. So I've done that. So now that whole little nook, which makes a lot of sense from a kind of living standpoint, that nook along south of Portal Drive, El Portal Drive, is going to be in District 3, and I think that's what Miss sort of was requesting and what we discussed. So that's up there. It's a little bit harder to tell on these PDF maps, but if you kind of look in a little closer, you can see that, and then the interact. But on my software that I use to draw the maps and everything like that, it's very clear. So
okay, sounds good. Yeah,
as
Dr. Collingwood just mentioned that south of El Portal Drive now belongs to District 3. That means Abela Circle, which is south of El Portal Drive, will be in the same district with Helms Middle School. Okay, thank you.
Excellent. So are there any other updates, reports, future agenda items from commissioners?
One more thing, I may have a scheduling conflict next Tuesday with a community workshop I've been asked to take part in, at least for this. It might be a conflict around closer to 7:30 or so. So depending on how long our meeting goes next week, but I just wanted to throw that out there just to make sure that the other commissioners won't have any conflicts or don't anticipate any conflicts, so that we can make sure we have a quorum if for some reason I'm not able to make it.
I only have a conflict on the 19th. But, and on the 18th, are you going to the Lafayette?
Oh, yes, I was asked. to
Were
take
you
part in
asked?
that.
Yes, I was interested in seeing that as well. So, but of course I was going to go after the meeting. So I plan on being here on the 18th. And Commissioner Diaz Noriega.
Yeah, I was just gonna update. I wanted to share that I could add or work on the 2-pager and translate it into Spanish so that we have both that English and Spanish. But I wanted to ask what's our capacity to make the preliminary plan into a Spanish version as well? And then any other languages needed for our communities to actually access it and be able to read it.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioner updates?
Should I respond to that? I can.
Absolutely, Mr. Pitts.
Yeah, I will check with the district and then also talk to Dr. Collingwood and our own internal resources at my law firm about if we have someone who's well situated to do translation on that document, at least into Spanish, as a starting point.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioner reports, updates, future agenda items? Seeing none, we get to move on to our next agenda item, item 8, future meetings. We've talked about that at length this evening. We have them for the next 2 Tuesdays, next January 18th, and I hope you all will be, all commissioners, as Mr. Lazzaretti has said, he has a conflict that the rest of us will be there. That will be our day for our last day for input. And then we will be having our January 25th meeting, which will be our presentation of the preliminary meeting. So at this time, if there are no other business of the commission this evening, I can move us on to item 9 for adjournment. Is there any other business of the commission this evening? One more last. We're good to go then. Thank you everyone for attending, and meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.